certainly it opens up more investment opportunities, and that's a very positive aspect for a business owner operator.
Hi, welcome to my podcast. As you know, retirement savings is always a hot topic here, and today I'm excited to have Chris Tomev joining us from TT Actuarial to discuss individual pension plans. Whether you already have an individual pension plan or are considering getting one, listen close because Chris has industry insights you'll want to hear. With over 20 years of consulting experience in retirement and benefits, Chris is a partner and actuary at TT Actuarial and has both his FSA and FCIA actuarial designations. He is here today to share with us his expertise on individual pension plans in Canada. Welcome, Chris.
Thank you, Rebecca.
Although there are rumored to be around 15,000 individual pension plans, and we'll call them IPPs for short, registered with Canada Revenue Agency, there are many more Canadians who could benefit from this tax-deferring vehicle, and that's why it's important to be informed of your options. Today, we will be talking about recent IPP industry changes, whether an IPP is right for you, and what happens to your IPP if your company is in financial difficulty. What is the biggest change you've seen for IPPs over the last few years?
Well, Rebecca, there's certainly no shortage of service providers in the industry. That includes actuaries and investment managers. Sometimes the service offerings between the two are bundled together, which blurs the independence roles that they should play. However, bigger than that is the reduced regulation. For instance, a business owner used to have to register the plan both with Canada Revenue Agency so that they could comply with the Income Tax Act, which monitors maximum benefits and maximum contributions. And they also had to register their plan with the province of Ontario, governed by FSRA, who are maintaining minimum standards of pensions and benefits. But nowadays, you don't have to register your plan for a business owner operator in the province of Ontario. Well, what benefit does that do for an IPP client? Well, certainly it opens up more investment opportunities. There's no FSRA annual filing fee. And there's also no more locking in restriction. And there's a whole slew of other opportunities that an IPP client can now afford themselves by not having to register the plan with the province. If you do have your plan registered in with Ontario, you could apply for an exemption. And that exemption will afford you the same benefits as if you'd never registered with the province in the first place.
I hear you saying that the biggest change is reduced regulation. If you are a business owner operator in Ontario, you no longer have to register your plan with two regulators. You only have to register with the Canada Revenue Agency and adhere to the provisions in the Income Tax Act. This is a significant reduction in compliance requirements. Also, Chris, I heard you say that an IPP should have both an actuary and an investment manager as service providers in order to ensure independent service offerings. Is that correct?
Rebecca, that is correct. The two providers are professionals, but they are subject to different standards of practice and care. Therefore, the independence nature of each profession should be adhered to make sure that this client is actually achieving the best advice.
Great. To our listeners, if you are an Ontario business owner operator, check with your service provider and make sure you're taking advantage of this reduced regulation. Chris, let's say I'm your average Canadian. Why should I start an IPP?
We maintain IPPs for people as young as 30, and in fact, our oldest IPP members probably into their 90s. We find that what's happening here is part of a succession planning. We're setting up individual pension plans for the originators of the business, mom and dad, for instance. And as they sort of reach retirement age, they start to collect an income from the plan. And the next generation family members are running business, and we're enrolling them into the IPP. To take advantage of some of the tax-deferred retirement savings opportunities. But ideally, a one-person plan, if we're starting it from scratch, ideally it's age 45 for that individual who was generating taxable corporate income that would be able to achieve a higher contribution for tax-deferred retirement savings in an IPP versus maintaining an RRSP.
Okay, so when my small business is generating taxable income that can be distributed to owners, I should be thinking about an individual pension plan as an excellent vehicle to receive that income in a tax-deferred way Furthermore, in a family business, younger members of the family can be introduced to the plan as part of estate planning.
Rebecca, it's just like an RRSP. When the money can be moved on death from one spouse to the other spouse, if there's family members in an IPP, that money can stay in the IPP and be used to defer taxable income for their future lifetime.
Great. Lastly, a question we've all been wondering, but we're maybe afraid to ask. What happens to my IPP if my company is having financial difficulty?
Well, an IPP that is exempt from the Ontario regulation means that there is no legal requirement to contribute to an IPP. If you are a regular member in a company pension plan and you're not a business owner operator, the Ontario rules would say you would have to legally contribute to the plan. So it's an opportunity to contribute for a business owner operator, but on a legal requirement. And if you're having tough time, that's not a problem. You would make your contribution in a particular year, and it may be in a particular few years in a row. And that contribution room would carry forward to a future period, maybe when times are a little bit better than current years. And you can make that contribution and catch up for the missed contributions. And that's a very positive aspect for a business owner operator where they might be subject to cyclical changes in the business environment.
Well, that's a relief. So if I'm a small business owner in Ontario and am therefore exempt from FSRA regulation, then I'm not required to contribute each year. I can choose to save up my allowable contributions for a great business year and then make my contributions when desired. Do I have to make a contribution the first year, though?
Well, usually you're setting up an individual pension plan because you've met the requirements of good corporate tax flow, you're committed to tax-deferred retirement savings, and instead of bonusing down or dividending out, you're going to want to make a contribution to an IPP. So we typically find when we set up these plans, all the parameters are met for a large corporate deduction in the first year. So corporations would typically make first-year contributions. And then as things evolve, good years or bad years, they can adjust and make contributions that they didn't make in one year because of a bad year in a future.
Chris, that was very enlightening. Thank you very much for sharing your individual pension plan expertise with us. We've learned that business owner-operators in Ontario have less regulation than they used to for IPPs since they are exempt from FSRA regulation. We learned of the importance of having independent actuary and investment managers as service providers for IPPs. We learned that an IPP can be a viable vehicle at any age, and that the key advantage is when you, as a business owner, have taxable income available for distribution. An IPP allows you to defer paying tax on that distribution, which is particularly useful for retirement savings. Lastly, if I start an IPP, I'm not required to contribute each year. I can take a break and return to making contributions without losing out on contribution room. Is there anything else you'd like to add, Chris?
I think that pretty well sums it up, Rebecca. Thanks.
Chris, how can our viewers contact TT Actuarial if they have any questions or want to know more about the services you offer?
Well, if you have a specific question about your IPP, you can email us at administration@ttactuarial.ca. That's TTACTUARIAL.ca. And we'd be happy to help answer any questions that you have.
Great. So all of you listening, I will share that email address below in the YouTube comments. As always, don't be shy. Let me know what you'd like to hear about next time. Thanks again for joining us, and we'll see you next episode.